Mindseye was the brainchild of one Leslie Benzies, the former studio head of Rockstar North, who oversaw most of the Grand Theft Autos, as well as Red Dead Redemption. Then he got canned, sued Rockstar, and founded a new studio in 2017. And that studio, called Build a Rocket Boy, produced absolutely nothing until the 2025 release of Mindseye. Hyped as a Grand Theft Auto killer, Mindseye instead was a laughingstock. When it wasn't showcasing a mountain of bugs or crashing nonstop on PC, it was a clunky third-person shooter with stiff controls, low ammo, crap AI, and multiple basic features completely missing. The first half of the game is mostly driving an empty map, constantly shoving you from waypoint to waypoint with no time to explore the open world. Not that it mattered because the open world was empty. But the rich, creamy diarrhea on top for me was the abysmal story, which played like a far-right-wing political wonderland as you fought a worker uprising, aliens crossing the border, a Me Too victim, a super corrupt liberal strawman, and the United States military coup all at the same time, all while glazing a paper-thin stand-in of Elon Musk as the single greatest man alive. But alas, we live in the 2020s, where no matter how badly a game sucks, developers will promise that it won't suck someday, on the expectation that players will come back to see if a game's ever been fixed. And thus, Mindseye has returned with a brand new expansion campaign, Blacklisted. If you know, you know, but if you don't know, I think it'll be funnier to give you the context after we cover the new content. Alright, at the end of Mindseye's story campaign, our hero Jacob Diaz had stopped an alien invasion by jumping through a portal, which killed him or ascended him to a higher plane of existence, or I don't know. But a robot had been left behind that maybe had his Mindseye powers, or maybe had a copy of Jacob's brain inside it, nobody knows. So now we get the next chapter of that story. Society is in shambles from all its tech infrastructure collapsing. There's a new evolution of robot that could change the world. The Silva Corporation and the mayor are engulfed in scandal. What happens next in the saga of Mindseye?
Meridian has a new mission for you. Your main target is Rohan Hakim, the world's most prolific narcotics supplier. Carmen Castillo, international arms dealer.
Oh. So, nothing then. Yeah, the Blacklisted expansion doesn't even reference the events of the base game. You play as an assassin named Julia Black who works for a new company called Meridian. Julia has been sent to take out two targets, a drug dealer named Rohan Hakim and an arms dealer named Carmen Castillo, and you need to stop them before they use drones to swamp the country with a new drug. Well, I guess it's good to know Build a Rocket Boy cares about their actual story and universe even less than the players do. So, gameplay. First, you drive to a parking structure. You do not get a game over by running over civilians, and the NPC AI has them barely react or even run towards the car that's about to run them over. I guess AI wasn't a priority to patch this past year. Then you fly a drone over a city square and bungle around until the game claims that you've spotted a chauffeur. You're supposed to keep the drone high above the people so it doesn't get spotted. You do not pick up a fail for flying low. Then you use a sniper rifle to... oh crap, the guy's not marked and you can't zoom in close enough to see any detail in the NPC's faces. Ah, there he is! And zipline to the bottom with an awkward first-person camera to cover how they didn't bother making a zipline animation. You grab the chauffeur's limo and you drive some more to pick up one of the criminal's lieutenants, and then you drive some more to take him to a warehouse. If lessons were learned from the base game, the overabundance of driving was not one of them. Finally, you get some actual gameplay as you sneak into a warehouse around some guards. Careful. Oh shit! I knocked over some loud distractions a foot away from this guy and nothing happened. And the brilliant stealth AI just has him stand in one place, looking away from you and never moving. Good thing these criminal kingpins hire goons that are blind and deaf. This is meant to be a stealth encounter using takedowns to clear out the guards. The problem is, you can't. Unlike a real stealth game, you can't hide the bodies, and several of the guards are out in the open where they will get spotted. Luckily, the stealth encounter doesn't give a shit if you just run in guns blazing and turn the map into a shooting encounter. A short, pointless shooting encounter with maybe 5 enemies who only engage you one at a time. Were they just afraid of making a level where players actually do things? And Julia is somehow firing at the ground while her character model is aiming at the ceiling. The best part of this warehouse section is you have the option of listening in on a conversation between 2 goons, if you can hear them over the deafening rotors of the drones!
Combat tested in multiple theaters of war, with a collateral damage exclusion.
I guess the sound mixer was one of the 100+ people that they fired! You decide to take down the drug runner by sneaking into the club disguised as Bunny House, a paper-thin XP of Dead Mouse who looks like Daft Punk with a penchant for drunk driving. Okay, with this game's track record, now I'm wondering what Leslie's problem is with Dead Mouse. So you drive, of course, out to one of 2 police disturbances to steal a cop's uniform and a police car. And then hell begins. You have to use a police cruiser to catch Bunny House as he drives away. The problem is, you're driving a big-ass SUV that can't turn worth a damn, and he's driving a souped-up sports car. He is vastly faster and more maneuverable than you are, and the route he takes is full of straightaways where he zooms way out ahead of you. Newsflash regarding basic physics! You can't catch a faster vehicle on straightaways! I figured my best bet was to catch Bunny House early, but I managed to glitch his AI into driving headlong into a bridge and getting stuck, and this somehow didn't count as catching him! What do you want, you frickin' turd blossom? Eventually, I wondered if I was supposed to grab a different police vehicle, especially since there are 2 disturbances that you can investigate. So to go back, I tried pausing the game and selecting Restart Mission, and guess what? It kicks me back to the start of the entire stupid-ass expansion because there's no other way to go back! And no, there is no way to grab a lighter police vehicle that doesn't drive and steer like ass. You have to catch a performance sports car in a crappy beater, and you're going to like it. So I restarted the expansion for nothing. Fortunately, it turns out you just pursue him until a scripted point where he crashes, but it's still a friggin' obnoxious level where one tiny screw-up means you lose. Alright, now I'm disguised as Bunny House and I can drive, of course, to the club. I'm sure nobody will ask why the world-famous male musician is suddenly a slender female in a tight leather suit, ass-hugger pants, and massive tits, and sure enough, nobody questions it.
Yo, why does that DJ have a great ass?
You're all clear.
During all the boring-ass driving sections, they have Julia talk to her mission control at Meridian, and he yaps at length about how they're dealing with corporate espionage. Moles are stealing all their secrets and sabotaging their operations, and they don't even know how many moles there are. They even have a complete nonsense nickname for who's behind it.
This is espionage on the highest level. Someone on the outside has been paying big money to spread corruption within Meridian's ranks, creating a ritual network for the vulnerable or disgruntled.
Oh, and even though they established that our targets are doing a drug deal, I think they retconned their own expansion to say they're also trading all the stolen data because they're also involved in the corporate espionage. They also keep trying to cram in that Julia has this super badass backstory of her mom running Meridian and training her to be awesome. All this babble like they had no other way to fill the mountain of dead air as you drive across the map like 3 or 4 times. Anyway, you go back to the club and have another stealth section to reach the gun runner. It's all of 3 enemies who appear to have 0 peripheral vision, none of whom patrol or turn their heads at all. You ambush 3 training dummies, and that's your stealth. You take out the gun runner, steal her clothes to meet the drug man, and immediately get attacked trying to leave the club. Either they forgot to program the disguise, or this lady's own employees hate her guts. I'm going with option A, since wearing a cop uniform doesn't stop the cops from shooting you. So I finally get into some combat with 4 people using a crappy pistol that only carries 7 shots. And then it's over because we needed to clear the way for even more driving. In the drug dealer's penthouse, you're told there are multiple ways to get to your target, and they're all marked on your map. I I find the super drug and I find a drink to poison the dude, having to sneak around nobody. It's literally just walking to some waypoints and somehow cracking an electronic keypad lock with a tumblers minigame. The drug man admits he works for someone who killed Julia's mom. He somehow gets poisoned even though he never drank the drink that I poisoned, and the expansion cuts off after 40 minutes of content. Build a Rocket Boy sent me multiple emails announcing and hyping this expansion. Miles said they were hyping this like Cyberpunk's Phantom Liberty campaign, relaunching the game and changing everything you know about it. This is their big home run swing to try and salvage the game, and it's only 40 minutes long. And that 40 minutes was mostly driving, with one baby's first stealth encounter and a single-digit number of armed enemies. I wasted a whole episode on this shit! So why are you still watching this video? For context, because once you plumb the rabbit hole of why this mission exists, you find out that Blacklisted is one of the most batshit expansions in video game history. Back when YouTubers and game critics got a look at early Mindseye footage, pretty much everyone said the game was looking rough. Build a Rocket Boy co-CEO Mike Gerard went on the warpath, insisting that all the negative buzz about the game was secretly a coordinated smear campaign being funded by, well, they've never named Rockstar Games, but they've heavily implied it was Rockstar Games. Just before launch, Build a Rocket Boy spent the bulk of its marketing budget on live streamers to show off the game. Said live streamers ran into mountains of bugs and crashes to the point that Build a Rocket Boy had to cancel all the streams in mid-progress. They still insisted that the people they had been paid by someone else to fake the game's problems. And then Mindseye released to a tidal wave of negative reviews and went viral for its rampant bugs and horrid gameplay, cementing its reputation as a complete joke. And again, the developer's co-CEO, Mike Gerard, stuck to his story. Everything was fake. All of the glitch footage had been faked. All of the bad reviews were fake. Every single scrap of bad coverage the game had received had secretly been arranged and paid for by We Won't Say It's Rockstar. Mindseye went down as the second worst game of 2025. Thank you, welcome tour. The launch was so terrible that Sony broke its rules to allow anybody to refund it, and Build a Rocket Boy took such a financial hit that they had to publicly file to lay off over 100 employees. Amidst all of this, a ton of Build a Rocket Boy employees blew the whistle on how terrible it was to work on Mindseye. Leslie was not only incompetent, but also a tyrant, running the company in such a way that employees had to prioritize catering to his every passing whim rather than making a game. They vented about this not only to the YouTuber Cyberboy, but also to a BBC article, the job site Glassdoor, and an open letter to management that was signed by over 100 employees.
I don't want to work here anymore!
So how did Leslie Benzies react to the unmitigated dumpster fire that he had to show for 7 years of work and, by some accounts, $500 million in budget? He huffed a big bag of copium and he tripled down on management's ridiculous lie. Both Leslie and Mike Gerard said in a private video call, which was leaked far and wide, that Mindseye failed because of a coordinated sabotage campaign by an unnamed company, and that part of the sabotage had been carried out by sleeper agents within their own staff. Oh yes! Leslie claimed that several of the game's developers had secretly been making the game bad on purpose on the direction and payroll of this unnamed company that wanted Mindseye to fail. When questioned on this, Gerard doubled down, insisting that they totally had proof and that subpoenas and arrests were imminent. Subpoenas and arrests have not followed. It would eventually be revealed that Leslie secretly installed spyware on all his employees' workstations and devices to illicitly monitor every single person in the company without their knowledge. Yeah, there's a lawsuit going over that little revelation. And Leslie didn't even stop there. If you go to Cyberboy's YouTube channel these days, you'll find, and I'm rounding down here, 7,000 rumor hype videos for Grand Theft Auto 6. and exactly one video on Mindseye. He's privated all of his Mindseye coverage because Leslie openly named Cyberboy and the YouTube network sponsoring him as being key players in this conspiracy, threatening Cyberboy with a cease and desist via Discord and threatening to sue him, even though, as Cyberboy points out, he was far from the biggest YouTuber reporting the game's failures. But here's the corker. Mindseye was published by IO Interactive, and IO Interactive dissolved their partnership. The game lost its publisher because IO saw Leslie's continued public meltdown and ran as far away as possible. And Leslie tried to claim this was a good thing because now Build a Rocket Boy can enjoy total creative freedom with all that no money that they have coming in. And all that backstory brings us to Blacklisted. You see, IO Interactive are the publishers of the Hitman games, and Mindseye was supposed to have a crossover with Hitman. When IO pulled out, that crossover was canceled, so they replaced Agent 47 with a generic leather fetishist named Julia Black, and they called it Blacklisted. Yes, Blacklisted is Build a Rocket Boy's pathetic attempt to ape Hitman to try and make good on a canceled crossover. That's why there are multiple options to get to the final target. That's why Julia keeps changing clothes to emulate Agent 47's disguises, a mechanic that they couldn't program for shit. The opening cinematic is structured like a Hitman briefing, and the mission is vaguely structured like a linear Hitman story mission, so I'm told. So that's why Blacklisted is such a heap of crap. They used the shitty Mindseye engine to try and make a bootleg Hitman, and that's only the beginning. Do you remember how Julia's boss spends the entire mission complaining that they have moles inside their organization, ruining all their operations with what they refer to as corporate espionage, the likes of which has never been seen? Yeah, that is exactly what Leslie Benzies has been crying in public for the last year since Mindseye launched. The mission culminates in you assassinating two people involved in the espionage conspiracy, meaning this entire mission is just an excuse for Leslie Benzies to act out his delusional fantasy of shooting in the face the people he blames for the failure of his game. And they say these saboteurs are also drug dealers and gun runners, just to crank up the slander. I'd heard that your targets are also named after journalists or former employees of Build a Rocket Boy. They flat out admitted that's what they were going to do, but I went through the game's credits and I couldn't find a connection. But the expansion does name and shame a real-life organization as being the instigator of the company's failure. You see, Cyberboy is signed to a talent agency called Ritual Network, and what did they call this cabal of saboteurs in the expansion?
Someone on the outside has been paying big money to spread corruption within Meridian's ranks, creating a ritual network from the vulnerable or just run. Ritual network, ritual network, ritual network.
Yes! The game publicly name drops and openly accuses a real-world company as being a haven of criminals that are attacking them. Dude! This is the exact opposite of what you should do when you're courting legal action against somebody. Which they are! Build a Rocket Boy has completely abandoned the story, characters, and universe of their game to bitch about all the people they blame for their failure. This goes beyond the realm of satire. Holy shit! I've seen my commenters calling Leslie the new digital homicide, what with him blaming outsiders for the game's crash and burn and threatening lawsuits, but there's someone else that this whole fiasco reminds me of: BitBoy. BitBoy was a crypto YouTuber who got busted for taking undisclosed payments to hawk scams to his viewers. When BitBoy was exposed, he tried to sue a YouTuber in the center of his controversy, but he didn't sue any of the bigger YouTubers who actually exposed him. He exclusively targeted small fry that he assumed couldn't fight back. Ben was dropped by the network behind his channel because they wanted nothing to do with his public unhinged behavior. Ben then started screaming that all his problems were due to a secret conspiracy of co-workers who were out to ruin him. He swore left and right that he totally had proof of this conspiracy, but rather than show or do anything with that proof, He just used his platform to dox the names of people he held responsible and to incite public harassment against his scapegoats. Is this whole scenario starting to sound familiar to anyone else? Yeah, well, here's how that story ends. Ben currently lives in a mental institution convinced that he's dead and that everybody around him is a Skrull, because that's what clinging to paranoid delusions and using ChatGPT as a life coach will do for you. So if I were you, Leslie, I'd seek help from a human doctor before you wind up in the next cell over from BitBoy. To be totally and completely fair to Mindseye in its current state, I decided to check out the other missions that the game has added since its initial release. After all, they keep trying to get people to come back to Mindseye by stating that limitless gameplay will keep being added through Arcadia, their level editor that looks like it's still only available on PC. Now, the game doesn't even have a title screen anymore, it just boots to a list of random missions with the story campaign bolted to the front of it. And while I was perusing the menus and the lists of available missions, I realized they took out the free roaming mode. Yeah, unless I spent an hour and a half just missing the option in the menus, you can't get to the open world anymore like you could at launch. Like, their reaction to people begging them to fix the open world was to cut it entirely out of spite. We're on the right track for this game's recovery, aren't we? On paper, Arcadia has a ton of additional missions to do that they've added since launch, but in reality, the overwhelming vast majority of them are car races and helicopter races, which mainly just serve to remind you that the cars drive like shit. And a lot of these races are 5 minutes or longer, with you needing to drive or fly through over 50 rings at a time. They added 3 survival maps, but I tried one and it was absolutely miserable. You spend most of the slow-ass game wandering off to look for ammo because the enemies in the shooter game don't drop ammo anymore. And then they keep spawning bullet sponge drones to soak up what little ammo you've got left. Who thought this was fun? There's a wave shooter level, which is short and piss easy since this is a cover shooter game where enemies never rush you down or flush you out. There's rude interruption, where you just shoot a few guys and have one car chase, like a single short story mission that's completely pointless. And there's a mission called Hunter Killer, which is just a turret section where you shoot robots until you die. Which you will, because very early on, your dumbass driver just parks in front of like 6 or 7 robots at once so they can all mow you down. This is what Mindseye is these days. Every month or so, they add a few 5-minute long barely experiences that you play once, you shrug, and you go back to forgetting this thing exists. This is not how you support or revitalize a game, and all of these missions are credited to Build a Rocket Boy. If the PC version has a community making custom levels, then exactly 0 of them have come to consoles. They're trying to revitalize the game off a feature that most of its players can't use. There is exactly one level that I actually really enjoyed. It's a new game mode called Goin' Haywire. You run through an airport trying to reach a goal. You have to try and keep a combo going by shooting enemies and running through gates as fast as possible, and you only have one weapon at a time by running through other gates. It encourages fast and frantic gameplay, dashing through the map, mowing down bad guys, and it was actually pretty fun and fresh and unique. And yes, you can select a character to play this map, and it lets you choose a woman in a bikini. At first I picked her to be funny, but her animations are actually much more fluid, snappy, and responsive than Jake's are. I tried him in this mode, and the game's main character plays vastly worse than some random NPC. Trouble is, there are 2 other Goin' Haywire maps, but one has all the enemies in cover so you can't rush or get a combo going, and one has you fighting enemies wearing black at nighttime and getting ambushed around corners, so even the actual fun mission is a one-off that they can't replicate. That or it took 2 abysmal failures before they could do one thing right. Mindseye was the kind of garbage fire that people mock for years to come, and while you could say it's admirable that the developer is still working on it, they're putting band-aids on a bloody stump. Adding brief one-off experiences with no replayability past a high score table isn't gonna bring players back. It won't reinvigorate Mindseye. In fact, mere hours before I sat down to record this script, news broke that Build a Rocket Boy is laying off another 170 employees, leaving them down to a skeleton crew of 80 people. To compound the studio's problems, they have also announced an intention to put, and I quote, a huge focus into AI. Of course. Dumbass made a whole game about the dangers of relying too much on AI, and then tries to run an entire studio with AI. It's poetic that this is the first video that I'm editing with an ancient version of Adobe Premiere like 5.0, because ever since Adobe started incorporating AI into its modern releases, it's become so hideously unstable that it's been months since I was able to put out a single video without having to work around software problems! But I digress. Mindseye is already dead. It just hasn't finished bleeding out yet. Build a Rocket Boy is on borrowed time. And if there's one takeaway from the lunacy around the game's production, it's that I feel bad for whoever's near Leslie Benzies when the dominoes finish falling.
Rohan and a shady cabal have stolen all our proprietary tech. Safe house locations, network passwords, source codes, weapons clearances, names and facial ID of all active agents. Everything. It's a key to bring down our entire organization.
You're talking about the data breach the mole stole from you.
Shut the fuck up, Leslie.